Welcome, everyone. We gather this afternoon to remember and celebrate the life of Phyllis Lund, one dearly loved, and now with our loving God. We come to give thanks for her life and to let go of the grief and pain that we may bear in the presence of this loving company and our God. I'm Jonathan Morgan, the Senior Minister of First Congregational Church, and I welcome you, and I'm so glad that you are here, and I know that the family is too. All the ways that you have supported them these past few months has meant a lot to them. Your cards, your letters, your phone calls, all the ways that you have reached out to them to support them during this time has been deeply appreciated. Thank you. A couple of notes about today's service. You'll notice that there's a hymn. This is one of Phyllis's favorite hymns. She loved music, and that'll be in your bulletin, and in just a few moments we'll be singing together. And I ask you to sing out in remembrance of Phyllis. And thank you for wearing your mask. I'm sorry. We had to go back to wearing masks again because we had a bit of an outbreak here at the church a couple of weeks ago. And so we had to go back to face coverings, at least for the near future. And I'm very sorry, but I'm very appreciative of your willingness to wear these masks as part of our safety protocols. Someday, we'll be back to normal again. We will have a time of fellowship afterwards, and you may meet anywhere outside the sanctuary, the lobby area, into the Wheeler room. There's quite a bit of space, and please greet your neighbors and greet the family. Maybe share some stories with one another. There are a couple of goodies there, namely some refreshments, which are going to be served out front. If you would like to have something to eat or drink, there will be a place to gather out front underneath the covered balcony area, or the covered walkway area. And we also have some special treats from the family, a number of trees. I know this was done for your dad's funeral, and as I've mentioned to the boys, I still have our sequoia in our front yard. And it's grown about, I would say, 3 feet since that service. So please take a tree home in honor of Phyllis and the family. Friends, we gather now in the protective shelter of God's healing love, free to pour out our grief as we lift up the life of this remarkable woman and celebrate that she is now with our loving God. We gather conscious of others who have died and of the frailty of our own existence here on earth. We come to comfort and support one another in our common loss, and to hear the wonderful memories that we'll be sharing in just a moment. And words of hope from our faith that will drive away our despair and move us to offer God our praise, even in the midst of our loss. We come to commend to God with thanksgiving the life of Phyllis as we celebrate the good news that death does not have the last word. Please join me in prayer. Creator God, we thank you for the gift of life, for the miracle of birth to the moment of our last breath. We live amidst the wonder and beauty of all of life. We marvel at the gift of what it means to be fully human, fully alive. And today we give particularly our thanks for the life of Phyllis Lund and all the many ways that she has blessed us and many others in this world. Loving God, we thank you for the gift of love. for the wonder of human relationships, the ability to know another and be known, to accept another and be accepted, to live in depth of meaning together. We thank you for the love we have known through Phyllis's long life, and for the love we could offer her in return. A depth of relationship which brings joy and gratitude in our hearts now as we remember her. Loving God, as we gather together now, help us to see beyond the shadows of earth, that we may envision the fullness of your light and love for our lives, and to find grace and strength for this and every time of need. Gather close and embrace us as we lift up our memories of one whom we've loved dearly. Amen. The words of the psalmist have brought comfort to the people of God throughout the centuries. And so I offer Psalm 23 to bring comfort to your hearts. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. And thou anointest my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the household of the Lord forever. Let us stand together for our hymn. standing as we offer our litany together. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to plant and a time to harvest what is planted. A time to dance and a time to mourn.
A time to speak and a time to keep silence.
A time to embrace and a time to let go.
A time to keep and a time to make peace with the broken hearted.
For God has made everything suitable for its season. Please be seated. In his letter to the fledgling church in Corinth, the Apostle Paul has said this about the spiritual gifts of God: faith, hope, love. These three. But the greatest of these is love. This passage came to mind when I considered the impact and blessing of Phyllis Lund's life. She was a person of integrity, of dedication. She was kind, decent, gentle, humble, just plain sweet. But of all the characteristics of Phyllis, the one that stands out to me very strongly is that of love. Of love. Friends, our lives are held by a love which will not quit or give up. A love which will not grow weary. A love which will never let us go. And a love which will never end. With this great hope, we turn our thoughts now to the many ways that Phyllis touched our hearts and brought love into our lives. And so we have three very special offerings with Cheryl, Ken, and Phyllis to help us remember how that love has touched our lives. Would you please come forward?
Good afternoon. My name is Cheryl Lyons. My sister Vicki and I talked about the special things and memories we wanted to share about our Aunt Phyllis. Phyllis was our aunt on our father's side of the family. Her only sibling was our father Eugene, and they were as close as a brother and sister could be. The last few years, both families worked together to have the two of them visit each other as frequently as possible. When COVID became an issue, they were not able to visit for several months. Their first visit at the Springs was outside with chairs on both sides of a large plastic window. As you can imagine, Dad and Phyllis sat on one side holding hands, and Grant and I sat on the other side catching up. They were not to be denied their bond. I would like to share a few older memories now. I was the flower girl at Phyllis and Warren's wedding at 4, I was a bit overwhelmed and forgot to drop the rose petals. This incident was brought up at other family events when we were recalling fond memories and resulted in much laughter and teasing. One of our favorite holiday memories was when both families lived in Portland and the Johansson clan went to the Lund home on Christmas Eve. After dinner, we heard a commotion on the roof, and to our wondrous surprise, there appeared Santa with bikes or trikes for all the kids. Can you imagine our joy? One of Vicky's favorite vacations was when Phyllis and she took Grandma and Grandpa to the Redwoods. It was so majestic and quiet on their walk through the forest. Grandpa went back to the car early, and when they returned, he was sitting in the back seat having a beer, singing songs from his childhood in Sweden. He was so happy to be with his girls. Phyllis and Vicky went to a local cafe. After Grandma and Grandpa went to bed for the first of our many girls' nights out. Phyllis was always an excellent role model, confidant, and a joy to share time with. Soon after Phyllis and Warren bought the farm property, they invited all the Johanssons to a picnic. Warren took all the kids on a ride in his four-wheeler into the woods and up and down the hills. Phyllis provided a sumptuous lunch, and fun was had by all, breaking in the new Lund home and property. From that day forward, our children have referred to the farm as Fantasy Farm and have frequently recalled those fun times. In more recent times, we have enjoyed New Year's Day brunch and a visit at the farm, barbecues in Salem, and we convinced our aunt it was time to start the tradition of Girls' Night Out. So occasionally the girls got together for dinner or lunch and a friendly girl talk. We so loved her and her bright spirit. We were privileged to enjoy these types of events and family occasions throughout our lives. Her home was elegant, but always warm and welcoming. We loved Phyllis's many attributes that she so kindly shared with her extended family: her faith, intellect, love of music, sense of humor, and sense of style. She was just plain classy. As an example of her sense of humor, our last visit with Aunt Phyllis was a one-at-a-time visit. When it was my husband John's turn, she looked at him and said, "You came to make me smile and laugh, right?" And he did. Oh, and we must add, Phyllis loved those ducks, and we will miss her even though she will be in our hearts and memories.
Let's see, is this okay? Can you hear me all right? Masks are nodding, that's good. So, my name is Ken Randall, and I really am very proud and honored to be able to represent the Randall family here today as we honor Phyllis and celebrate her life. So I really don't remember exactly the first time I met Phyllis or Warren or anybody else specific in the Lund family. When I was about a year old, my parents, Dwayne and Peggy, bought their first home at 1365 Southeast Hammond Street in Portland. And shortly after that, and I just learned something from Cheryl here before we got started, the Johansson family owned the house right next to the house my parents bought. And shortly after my parents moved in, Warren and Phyllis moved into the house right next door that the Johansson family owned. So I'm 67 years old now. So I have known the Lund family for 65 or 66 years. That is a long time. That is my entire life. So I'd like to recognize and honor the 65 plus year friendship that my parents, Dwayne and Peggy, have had with Warren and Phyllis. even though the Lunds moved to Eugene, they stayed, that friendship, some things are just meant to be. It's very magical. And they maintained their friendship for the rest of their lives, literally. And, you know, that's been passed on to their children. So, you know, it doesn't happen very often. Like we all know, and you have those kind of relationships, they're very special. So I remember our parents would take many trips to places like Hawaii or Las Vegas, where I know they would go see a lot of shows back in that era, like the biggest entertainers. And even when a show was sold out, I would hear stories about how they got to get into the show and had really good seats. So that, I assume, was because of a certain someone's sales ability. Sometime, I think my brother would know this, he has a better memory than I do, but we were 9, 10 years old, something like that, and my parents bought a piece of recreational property at Coast Village in Florence. And not too long after that, the Lunds bought a piece of property there, and I remember we spent many weekends together, holidays there, playing games, eating good meals. Each of the families on their little lots had their own barn that actually were more like glorified, nicely decorated storage sheds. But they were great, and you know, I can't tell you how many games of pitch we played there. So, and I know we're here to celebrate Phyllis, but when I think of Phyllis, I think of Warren. When I think of Warren, I think of Phyllis. So I'm going to take just a couple minutes, hopefully not that long, but mention a couple things about Warren. So, I don't know, I was probably my 12, 13, early teens, somewhere in there, and our family had come down to Eugene to visit the Lunds for the weekend. And I had stayed in Greg's room with him, and I remember sitting on the bed, getting dressed, and I put my socks on, and Warren happens to walk by, and he sees me pulling my socks on. He goes, "Whoa, Ken, that's not how you put socks on." I'm like, "What?" I said, "No, here's how you do it." Well, he reminded me to not just yank them on, and to kind of ball them up and gradually slide them up, pull them up so you don't stretch the socks all out. So I don't know why I remember that. And almost every time I put my socks on, that's what I think of. So it's kind of like something a dad would say, right? So, and another thing that some of you guys might remember, but I don't remember again how old I was, probably, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, somewhere in there. We wanted to take a guy's trip to go fishing. That was not the thing for the Randalls or the Lunds to do. But we went up into British Columbia to a lake that you can only get to by flying in. And I don't remember which of the boys were there. But one day, I know Warren and I were in the same boat. And this is like just small boats. And I got a fish on, and in both my excitement, Warren's excitement, we were moving around in the boat, and I got knocked out of the boat. So I'm floundering around in the lake, and Warren is freaking out, and all of a sudden I realized, oh, I'm standing on the bottom of the lake. So it all turned out okay. But we all know Warren loved to have fun. And every single time I saw Warren, he made me laugh. Every single time. And it could have been typically just him telling a joke, which I don't know where he had his supply of jokes from, but it's pretty extensive. Or lagging for quarters, or having a petting contest in the hall, or as I mentioned a bit ago, just playing a game of pitch. I don't know, hundreds or maybe thousands of games of pitch that we played. Oftentimes it was for the championship of the world. And Warren usually won those games. So I was very fortunate to observe the love affair Warren and Phyllis had for each other for so long. Warren would say something sweet to his beautiful wife, and Phyllis would just go, "Oh, Warren." Phyllis truly has been like a second mother to me, always calling me Kenny. And that never bothered me. Most people are Kenneth, and I was like, it's later on in my life, it made me feel young, so I'm good with that. After Warren passed away, I would go either call Phyllis or go visit with Phyllis, and she and I had many really heart-to-heart conversations, and I really treasure those conversations, and I appreciate her positive attitude and perspective on life and the challenges that we all go through on a daily basis. When I think of Phyllis and the words to describe her, grace, beauty, gentle soul, intelligence, compassionate, giving, caring, humble, and loyal come to mind. To the very end, Phyllis maintained her elegance, her beauty, her dignity, her compassion for others, and always made me feel loved and confident that everything will be okay. I could literally talk about Warren and Phyllis and our two families all day, and how special our lifetime friendships have been. I'm grateful beyond words and will always cherish our special friendships and memories, and appreciate the fact that the path of my life intersected and connected with the path of their lives. So this is a very difficult loss for me personally, and I know all of you as well. Phyllis was a gem, a beautiful woman with a beautiful soul. For me and my family, this is kind of an end of an era. My mom is the lone survivor of what I consider my Fab Four parents. I think of my dad every day, and I think of Warren very often, and when I do, I always smile. I will miss visiting with Phyllis, but will carry her soul with me. I will be challenged, but will give it a shot to live my life with the dignity, class, faith, and grace that Phyllis lived hers with every day. Thanks.
Hi. My husband David and I have many precious memories of times with the Lunds. But, were you signaling to me? Oh, okay. I thought she was gonna. But today, I'm here to talk to you about the philanthropic educational organization known as PEO that Phyllis belonged to for 43 years. The mission of PEO is to promote education of girls by providing scholarships and loans to qualified applicants to help them attend college. In addition, PEO owns a college, Cotty College, a well-respected four-year girls' college located in Nevada, Missouri. Funding for these PEO projects starts with local PEO chapters. Each local chapter, through fundraising activities, makes annual contributions to the state chapter and to PEO International, which then distribute the funds among the projects. Phyllis was a member of Chapter H in Eugene. Chapter H contributes over $3,500 annually to support the PEO projects, the scholarships, the loan fund, and the college. When you learn that there are almost 6,000 local PEO chapters and more than 200,000 PEO members in the United States and Canada, most of which are making similar contributions, you can appreciate that the total amount of contributions to PEO is immense. Working together, PEOs have a huge impact on helping girls get their educations. But PEO is more than just a fundraising group. It's a sisterhood that enriches the lives of its members. And PEOs refer to one another as sisters. When a woman accepts an invitation to join a PEO chapter, she takes an oath to incorporate PEO's 5 virtues of faith, love, purity, justice, and truth as part of her life. She promises to respect, honor, and support her sisters and others. Phyllis embraced and embodied all of these PEO virtues. She inspired us with her dignity and principles, her moral compass, and her respect for knowledge and truth. She valued a person's character over pedigree or wealth. She appreciated and honored other people's gifts. She never, this is the hard part for me, sorry. She never sought the limelight and was humble before any well-earned accolades. She listened to us and she laughed with us. Phyllis had the heartbeat of a lion. Sorry, I'm gonna make you come up and read this. Of a lion, and loved fiercely and devotedly. She loved PEO, she loved her Chapter H sisters, and we loved her back. Chapter H was blessed to have her. Phyllis was initiated into Chapter H in November of 1979. After serving as Chapter H president in 1985, Phyllis remained an active member for the rest of her life. And she now has, excuse me, a well-deserved place in PEO Chapter Eternal. She was my friend. She was my PEO sister. And I miss her. Thank you. Thank you.
Cheryl, Ken, Phyllis, you're a tough act to follow. I'm the youngest son. My name's Gary Lund, and I'd like to thank you all for coming. I'm going to go through the first 30 years of our mother's life and let my brothers take the remaining 64. Mom was born in 1927 to John and Irene Johansson in Tracyton, Washington. She was raised about 500 yards from the Puget Sound, which serves as a playground for her and her older brother, Eugene Johansson. Now, as you all remember from your high school history books, 1929 was the Great Depression that sent the world into a tailspin. Not only did it devastate her household, but many others throughout the world. As a child, she did not realize that times were tough, even though her brothers and her swam and romped through the neighborhoods as though nothing was wrong. The Depression, as well as her parents, taught her that nothing comes easy. Now, this is a trait that she kept with her entire life. In 1945, she graduated from Kitsap High School. In the lobby is her high school graduation yearbook. We encourage you to all take a look at it. She was active in just about all aspects of small-town high school life, but her passion was drama. She had dreams of acting on Broadway and even earned a partial drama scholarship to Forest Grove University. Her love of the arts stayed with her entire lifetime. At Pacific, she majored in education and drama. While her dreams of Broadway did not pan out, she did meet and fall in love with Warren Lund. Our dad bounced around his college career with stops at the University of Oregon, Stanford University, and the Army Air Corps, but always returned to Forest Grove, not because of Forest Grove, but because of our mother. In August of 1950, they were married in Tracyton, Washington. We have several wedding pictures of the handsome couple in the lobby as well. The 50s were an exciting time in America, as well as our family. Mom and Dad traveled throughout the Oregon in teaching jobs. And the 1950s also saw the beginning of our family. Grant, born in 1952, Greg in 1954, and saving the best for last, myself, in 1956. In early 1957, Dad realized that teaching was not his future, and he moved the family to Chicago, Illinois for about a year. They soon realized that they missed their family and friends of the Pacific Northwest and returned to Oregon in 1958, settling in Portland. Shortly, I shall turn the podium over to my brother Greg to cover the next 30 years of my mother's life. However, in closing, I would like to say that our mother was a very spiritual person. I know she's here now, and I know she's smiling. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's nice to see old friends, new friends, old faces. Forgot my notes, so thank you. So, my father's company was formed here in Eugene, and even though he worked and commuted for a couple of years, we moved down here in about, I believe it was 1960 or 61. So we were all, 4, 6, 8 years old, so we were a handful, okay, but, we were all right. But then the 60s came, all right? And 3 teenage boys in the 60s. Boy, I couldn't imagine that. Of course, we were all gentle souls and never got in any trouble. My dad would come downstairs and see some of the screens on the floor, because our bedrooms were downstairs and theirs was upstairs. That was probably a bad idea, actually. And the screens would be on the floor, and he'd go, Mom, or Phyllis, how come the screens are out outside on the ground? She goes, I don't know. Well, can you kind of think what we were doing? We were sneaking out of the house at night. And some of the perpetrators that were with me are here in the audience right now. So, anyway, in the late 60s, Grant went away to college first, and then me, and then Gary. And and the 70s came, and eventually we were all in college, although we always come back and visit, and Mom would always come and see us, always supportive, always complimentary, always on our side. She just did not have a mean bone in her body. You know, her heart was gold, and I know that's a cliche, and I know people say that, but it really was. And she definitely is in the arms of an angel, as that beautiful song that we're about to hear, everyone. So the 80s came. Me and my brothers all found our way in different cities on the West Coast and so on. We all moved away, and my dad had a farm built in 82, right, Gary? So they moved out there and had lots of parties and lots of celebrations and lots of family reunions. And I see a lot of faces that were at those celebrations and parties, which was wonderful. So my boys came along later, although that's not, see, I forgot my notes. That's not in the 80s, so that was later on. So anyway, her life is a legacy of kindness and happiness and giving and supportiveness. And she touched more people than I can imagine just with her gentle soul. And may the Lord bless that quality on more people, and may her life not be in vain. She'll never be forgotten in people's hearts and minds forever and ever. So thank you for my shortcomings without the notes, but I will now pass it on to my brother Grant. Thank you.
Oh, here's your notes here. Just remember, it's okay to cry. We all miss her a great deal. First of all, thank you all for coming. My mother had so many wonderful family and friends, and it's a joy to see them, so many of them here today. Please take time to enjoy each other's company as we gather to remember our mother. Many thanks to already who have spoken, to the Randalls and the Wolves and the Johansons. Not only have been much beloved family and friends over the years, but provided invaluable support over the last few years of Mom's life. We will be forever grateful. There are, of course, many people who love my mother and many people my mother loved. It was a difficult process after she got sick. As you know, she fell and broke her hip, and then was in and out of the hospital twice, into skilled nursing twice. Thank you all for the cards and letters and the visits and the flowers. Even when COVID hit and we couldn't really see her, but the letters kept coming. I really appreciated all the effort that people made, and I will be forever grateful to you for that. The people at Peace Health, when she was there, were very professional and treated her very supportively. As I said, the skilled nursing facilities were very good, and the Springs, sometimes you forget beyond the glitz and how wonderful it is, how nice, and the backbone of the Springs is the people there. And as Mom got worse and needed more care and eventually into hospice, they were there for her the whole time, sometimes on an hourly basis. I know I was with her in a room for the last week of her life, and they were there whenever she needed help, and I will be ever grateful to them. Lastly, our sincere gratitude to Pastor Morgan and the rest of the staff here. They were always they're always there when Mom needed them to lean on. They were there when I needed them to lean on. And Mom had a 40-plus year relationship with this church and its people. And it was very clear how much it enriched both the church and her because of that relationship. It goes without saying that my brothers and I were very close to our mother. During the last 3 months of her life, you could see the toll it took on us.
But nobody complained about the late night trips to the hospital or having to visit through closed doors through a baby monitor, or even worse, when the hospital would not let us see her at all because of COVID. Bills were paid, letters and phone calls were answered, furniture moved and rearranged, healthcare assessed and then altered. I'm very proud to be a Lund boy and have such two wonderful brothers. I think we all know who to thank for that. My mother and I always had a very strong bond, but over the years and distance, sometimes I forget that she was so sentimental about me. In going through all her belongings, a difficult but rewarding task, I found all sorts of cards and letters I had sent to her over the years. Things I had forgotten long ago, she still kept to remember the good times and the tough times. Those tough times, especially in the 60s right out of high school, when Dad and I were battling about everything, Mom was always there to listen and have me try and understand where Dad was coming from. There were heartfelt letters sent, long walks and talks, and phone calls at all hours. To say that she was understanding and compassionate is an understatement. And she came to lean on me also. In the early 80s, Oregon had a ballot measure to legalize gay marriage. Mother struggled with this because in the Bible, in her opinion, did not approve of same-sex unions. We talked about our gay friends, how they seemed to have the same joy and problems with the relationships as straight people did. And she came to believe that everyone had the right to be in the union of their choice. Once again, I was very proud of her. And then, of course, there was the whole dilemma about the Vietnam War. Mom always wanted to believe in the integrity of our leaders and wanted to support their decisions. But as the war dragged on, she began to question why we were sticking our noses in another country's affairs. Of course, having her oldest son naively drop out of college and then get drafted might have had something to do with that. When my folks moved out to the farm in '82, Mom was hit with a kind of double whammy of change. Not only were all three of her boys now out of the house, but the whole social network was now 15 miles away. But she adapted. Parties at the farm were organized for relatives from both sides of the family. PEO get-togethers were now sometimes held out in the country. There were meets and greets with the new neighbors. There was a new house to organize and a huge garden to plant. 75 rhododendrons went in behind the house. A huge veggie garden was an annual endeavor, and fruit trees were planted in the orchard. But it was still a lonelier existence than she was used to, and she started to get restless. So she told Warren it was time to see the world. There was a journey to St. Petersburg to visit the world-famous Heritage Museum. She organized a trip to Scandinavia to visit the relatives in Sweden. She dragged Warren to New Zealand, and he ended up loving it so much he wanted to move there. Sometimes they would take along Grandma Lund or Grandma Johansson, sometimes one or two of the boys. Remember, this was a woman who went to New York City by herself when she was 19 to work on the top of the floor of the RCA building. She was not afraid to try new things. I think sometimes the reason she was so confident in her ability to try new things, go new places and make new friends, because she was a bit naive about what she was getting into. It also could have been she was smart and attractive and everyone liked her. But I think it was her fundamental belief in the goodness of people. She wanted to think the best of you. She wanted you to succeed in life and was there to help you do so. She certainly was there for her boys, her husband, and her grandchildren. As the years passed, it became apparent that she and Warren were going to have to help out with their mothers. During the 90s, both Dad and Mom's Fanny and mothers, Irene and Fanny, were moved down to retirement communities here in Eugene. And of course, this meant more time and effort for Mom to make sure the ladies were well attended to. And then there was Dad's health. His rheumatoid arthritis and Parkinson's disease bothered him constantly for the last 15 years of his life. They had to move back into town in 2002, and she needed to not only run the household, but to attend to him. Not sure she minded too much. Warren was the love of her life, and he doted on her constantly. You probably remember that he called her Beacon because she was the light of his life. As his health deteriorated, he needed more and more of her time, and in January of 16, he was diagnosed with lung cancer and had to come to terms, and Mom had to come to terms with his mortality. And she did it with dignity and class, becoming his nurse, his mother, and his caregiver, in addition to his best friend and wife. That last year of Dad's life was a struggle, but it showed her strength of character. Who could forget how she broke her hip for the first time trying to catch Dad when he fell at the supermarket? He was fine, and she ended up with the broken bones. I think most of us hear our parents talking to us long after they're gone. I still hear my father's voice or presence urging me to do the job well or don't do it at all, and to sweat the small stuff because it's all small stuff. My mother's voice in my head is more concerned with how I treat other people rather than getting tasks accomplished. My mother's voice tells me to be more compassionate and understanding. My mother's voice tells me to walk a mile in their shoes, to realize how lucky I've been and to empathize with those not so fortunate, to give of myself more freely. Those thoughts of her is what I would like to leave you with today. To be more compassionate and understanding, to give more of yourself, and to realize how lucky we've all been to have known her. Thank you.
So there was a song in the 70s that said, there'll be one child born to carry on. And I went the past 5 months ago and missed the birth of her great grandson, who is here today, who was born 5 weeks ago and is the love of our lives. May I please present Calvin Allen Lund. And I think he's snoozing. She never got to meet him, but I'm sure she's looking down now and she's as proud as can be. Thank you, Calvin. Thank you, everyone.
Spend
Please join me in prayer. Eternal Spirit, whose years cannot be numbered, nor whose power thwarted, nor whose love encompassed. We have gathered here this afternoon as a community of family and friends. And again, we have turned to you. We praise your name and seek again to open our life to your renewing, strengthening, and sustaining presence. And we ask that your Spirit might continue to move among us, drawing us closer together as a community, as we continue to remember one whom we have loved and cherished. Let the memory of Phyllis be blessed in our midst on this day and in all days ahead. And grant that, steadied by faith in life eternal, we may find, even in death, a new way to a fuller life. For we thank you, God, for all the helpfulness and happiness and sweetness which day by day, year by year, flowed from Phyllis's life into the lives of others. For all warm memories, for good times shared, for victories won, for sorrows overcome, for smiles and laughter, we thank you, Lord. We thank you. Loving God, in your mercy, give to Phyllis's family and to all who mourn most intimately her going wide margins of comfort around their spiritual needs and deep wells from which to draw their consolation and their strength. And then, God, support us all the day long until the shadows lengthen and the busy world is hushed and the fever of life is done. And then in your mercy, grant us a safe lodging and a holy rest and peace at the last. For into your arms, into your hands, into your heart, loving God, we commend your servant, Phyllis Lund. Acknowledge, we humbly pray, a sheep of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock, and a daughter of your own great love. Receive her into the arms of your mercy and the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the company of her beloved Warren and all the saints in light. And may the love which is stronger than death and which binds us together in the unity of life energize our spirits with divine stillness, now and forever. Amen. Having now had the chance to lift up a love that is so great and shone so clearly through the life of Phyllis Lund, go from this place, having been renewed and strengthened by this grace of God's love. Go, ready to serve others as Phyllis would.